You, Gay. And thank you everybody for sticking around. Usually at these events we've got like half of the people that are here, so clearly the draw card are these three people on the panel with me today. What I have brought them here to discuss is, what is driving the growth of programmatic digital out of home, and how they as agencies are really gearing up to deal with these changes. For those who don't know me, and I'm pretty sure most of you were here a moment ago, I am Laura Wall. I'm the head of programmatic at QMS Media. I have with me Sally, Anthony and John. I'm going to let you quickly introduce yourselves, your role and where you work, and then we can kick off. I'll start with you, Sal.
Okay. So I am Sally Lawrence and I'm a group director at Enigma.
Anthony Siaka, Head of Marketplace at Essence Mediacom.
And John Lynch, Head of Out-of-Home and Audio Partnerships at OMG.
Thank you, guys. So to kick things off, we've spoken, I guess, a lot today about this whole 3% that we are. But if we look at the growth of programmatic in the last 4 years, we've seen significant growth. So last year, $26 million, up from $12 million the previous year. And when we look at the prediction for 2023, there's talk that we'll see another 40% growth, so between $35 and $40 million in 2023. I want to know from the panel, what categories or advertisers are driving this growth, and what do you think makes them early adopters? I'll go with ladies first, and then we can move across.
Yeah, so I think it's not really been focused on one category or industry. I think we've seen it across a number, so higher education, home builders, entertainment, pharmaceutical. And I think, it's really come down to, I guess, the flexibility and what we can activate and the tactical things that we can bring to life. And like the reality is we can do some pretty cool shit and clients love cool shit. So getting it in front of them and presenting what we can do, it's actually been a pretty easy sell for us. And that means that we can get some pretty cool tests on our plans and start activating against. And obviously the more that we can test and the more that we can do, the more that we can talk to other clients about what we're doing with our other clients. And that makes it easier as well to start investing more in these channels. And we've had some really great support from our partners that have helped bring this to life. We work with Vista and Hivestack, and then also with the DOOH guys and our suppliers. I think all of that has come together and really allowed us to sort of go to market and start testing, which has been great.
Great. Anthony?
I guess from us, it's a combination of existing traditional out-of-home clients and categories. So you've got your QSRs, your film houses, and your FMCG that invest a lot into kind of plays a brand role. So I think it's for them, it's dipping their toe of how can they enhance that from a data-led or signal-led. I think there's a focus in market on everyone, how do you follow the audience and then reach them, coupled with kind of new advertisers to out-of-home, and that's a mix of categories in terms of your tech that may have not previously, just due to barriers of entry, that can now touch it to tick a box for them and actually see some outcomes. So it's a mix of both, and I think it's about how we enhance and also experiment and put their toe in the water and kind of learn from it.
Lynchy, what categories?
I agree with Sally that it hasn't really come from one specific category. We've seen, we spend a lot of money in out-of-home, but it's true to say we haven't spent a lot of money in programmatic out-of-home yet. But those clients that have shown an interest, or those clients that have been early adopters of those that are open to testing, have got test and learn budgets, or just serendipitously, the brief really cries out for a programmatic solution. So we've seen government, quick service restaurants, motor cars, and home improvement clients, but they're not coming from a specific vertical that is driving that.
Yeah,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think as well when we do look at that SMI data out there, that we can see the categories that you're saying, the QSR, and those traditional out-of-home buyers are who are transitioning over. Traditionally, and we've spoken about this on panels earlier today, out-of-home is famous for being a brand channel. I guess now with programmatic, it kind of does deliver to that full funnel. We've spoken about it, Ben presented it earlier as well. Anthony, I'm going to start with you, but how are your clients using programmatic digital out of home to enhance what they're doing in that brand space? So do you have an example that you can share? And then I'm going to add another question on that. Also, how are, I guess, digital clients adding programmatic to their omni-channel plans? 2 questions in one for you.
Love the build. But I think to start, I might kind of, what's driving that growth in terms of the categories, it's kind of the combination of kind of the flexibility and more enhanced targeting. I think all of our clients and us as an industry are trying to dig deeper on high value audiences. So the role it plays of being audience led and audience first is facilitating that. So coming out of kind of COVID in terms of being flexible has enabled clients to kind of dial up, down, change between markets. So that flexibility has kind of driven that growth. But from like an omni-channel approach, we're using it to enhance our, from a QSR perspective, you do your laydown for a traditional, and then you kind of map that versus what else we're trying to achieve. So you can identify the gaps and the audiences we want to potentially heighten, whether that's by a market or a particular message, and actually dial that up. And I think it's about how we can close the loop on that when we do dial it up in different markets. And I guess whether that's kind of test and learn of different menu options or different price points, and actually see growth in store based on geo, but also different messaging as well. What was your build again?
The first one was, I guess, more how you're using it as an enhancer, and then from that omni kind of channel, which you...
Yeah, cool. So I think with the enhancer, it's across a range. So we talked on that QSR example, but it's also your film houses that you're doing a lot, whether it's kind of transit, it's all about high impact. So I think the big thing of this is it can enhance because it's still your same inventory, it's your high impact stuff, and it's just informed by a data signal. So we could be the launch of for film houses, the launch of the make or break in that first Thursday through Sunday. If they don't make, they can miss in terms of an opportunity, particularly across your more competitive periods, school holidays. So they will look to kind of dial up and dial down by market, and it's all coming from the same pot of money, but also accessing new pots. And that's because audience led, giving audience led solutions is you might be dipping into your kind of programmatic audio and video as well that you can now activate from a programmatic out of home.
Yeah, and we saw that before. Sal, have you got any examples there?
Yeah, so we, I guess for a home builder as an example, and I guess holistically, we still very much are fans of doing direct buys as well. So in most cases, we're doing sort of direct IO buys partnered with a programmatic buy and sort of doing it together, and I guess pulling different levers through their strengths. And I think, for the home builder example, we're using sort of our direct buys to do more of that brand job, which I know has been mentioned a lot today, going for share of voice and things like that. And then with the programmatic buys, it's much more of a DR sort of mid-funnel focus, so trying to drive display home visitation on weekends. We're only running sort of Wednesday afternoon through to Sundays and things like that. So I think, to Ant's point around sort of enhancing, we're starting to pepper it into our strategies to, I guess, amplify what we're doing in the space.
I will move on then, because we're talking about strategy here. And again, we've spoken about it being kind of that full funnel brand now to performance. So when planning in your agencies, where does programmatic out of home sit in channel plan? Lynchy, do you want to?
Yeah, I think we've decided that the best place for people to make decisions around anything with regard to the client was within the client teams. So this is very much sitting in the planning teams that are connected to their clients, who know their clients inside out. They're making the decisions about whether to use out of home at all. And they're making decisions about whether to use programmatic at home as part of that. Very much it's been driven by tactical opportunities on top of the brand building that you spoke about earlier on. That's the kind of add-ons that we're looking at. But we feel like those teams making the right decisions for the clients are the ones that are empowered to make the right choices. Yep. I think there's been some wrong choices made. I think some clients we've jumped in and we've done it because it is the new thing and it's something cool and different to do. Yep. I think our big challenge is making sure that everybody is building a use case up front for programmatic out of home and not being open to that question afterwards of did that work? Did it work better than us doing something else? Let's make our decision around it's doing a specific job that we couldn't do before. Yeah. It's allowing us to target these groups in these locations at a point in time based on data and what we know about them and understand them. So definitely it's within the teams. I think there's some mistakes we made along the way, but we're trying our best to kind of justify the use up front and rather than answer that question at the end of the campaign.
Yeah. And are you pulling any kind of digital specialists into those client teams? Do you have
different teams are set up in different ways, but I mean we are using Resolution to activate, so they know platforms, and our feeling is that the planning teams know planning and they know strategy and they know their clients, and those people know how to use platforms. And whilst there is going to be a bit of crossover, and I don't think it's exact by every single team, we think people who know how to do something should be the people who are doing it. There is interest from teams, from investment teams, on using platforms. People see it as the future, so there's definitely an appetite for people who've traditionally been buyers of TV, out of home, cinema, radio, to get involved in that, and we're trying to kind of work out the best way to do that, whilst not losing all the ability and the knowledge from the teams of Resolution about platform.
Anthony, at Essence Mediacom, where does it kind of sit for you guys?
Similar to Lynchy, I think first I'll dial it back. I think it's important because there's a perception that programmatic is so short term and it's not planned within the normal planning cycle. So I think that's it's important to know that programmatic, whether it's kind of programmatic video, audio, or out of home, is planned within the same planning cycle as every other channel. So whether that's to hit your 13-week lead time in TV, it's still planned out within that. I think that's important because while it might be activated shorter term, that's the nature of the beast, and being able to kind of optimize based on a data signal to hit an audience at a particular time, that provides that flexibility I talked before. So I think that's important to know that, and I think within that, it's a mix of shared learning between the planners and the buyers who actually know kind of the role of channel, and it's making sure that even if it is because we're fortunate enough to have the Sightline guys to actually activate that at a Group M level. So it's them understanding from that initial client brief, the role of channel and how we can help and how we can plug that in to even inform the planning across other channels of what role, how we can reach our audience in terms of, it's about kind of getting experiences rather than just an exposure. So for us, it's a combination of that shared learning and learning, to Lynchy's point, they're the experts within the platforms. What can we learn from them? What do they have learnt from other channels? And more broadly, from a programmatic at home, other channels' shortcomings from a programmatic, so we can leap forward and then actually execute. And it might be different messaging to make sure that we hit the right audience at the right time with the right message.
Great. And Sal?
Yeah, so we're a bit unique in that we're a full service agency, so we cover both the media and the creative side, and a lot of the strategic work that we do, some of the ideas that the guys are coming up with, it's looking at sort of being able to actually activate that in programmatic outdoor and really bringing the ideas to life through that channel. So in some instances we've had sort of conversations where programmatic outdoor is actually at the core of the campaign strategy, and then you're actually bringing in other channels to obviously amplify and build reach and things like that. So it's, we do a lot around moment mapping as well, and programmatic outdoor is a really great way for us to execute against some of those moments. So I think it's enhanced sort of our strategic side of our business, and we've always been big fans of out of home at Enigma, and I think we've just sort of, I guess, brought programmatic outdoor into our toolkit, and it's something that we're talking to clients about every day anyway.
Yeah. And I find that interesting. I think with Tourism Tasmania as well, programmatic out of home became kind of like a brand in itself that allowed them to work across audio and online. And so I guess I can see, it does really sit in those client teams and really at that channel planning level. Yet when it comes to activation, it's sitting in a separate team, so whether that be a Resolution or a Sightline. So how are your programmatic teams being trained to really understand, I guess, out of home as a channel and the role that it does have in the wider media mix? John, I'm throwing over to you.
Well, first of all, I suppose they don't sit in isolation. They don't not attend client meetings. So people in resolution do have a client patch, and they're expected to know an awful lot about that client. So they will be exposed to the broader strategy for the client, and they'll understand where their stuff fits into that. I think again, they're also human beings, right? So they'll know the difference between a large format billboard and a retail panel from simply walking around their daily lives. I think there are some nuances in there. I think the work we're doing on the impression multiplier with Grant and Move will help to solidify the differences and make it very clear that we've got some standardisation in place, and there is a kind of methodology behind it. But yeah, they're intelligent people. They can pick this up very, very quickly, and they're not working in isolation from the planning teams, the strategy teams, the investment teams. All of those people are working very closely with them. So we give them credit for being sharp enough to pick it up, I think.
Yeah, I guess that kind of lends itself to asking for, I guess, us out-of-home providers in the room. Who do we talk to? How should we be having that conversation with your teams?
Well, the short answer is everybody, really, but which is tough, right? Because you've got a probably smaller subset of people talking programmatic within your sales teams, and there's a huge number of people that you've got to communicate with.
We just want to know where the money is, John. Where's the money?
There's plenty of money, and we're spending a lot of money in out of home. I think we need to persuade people of the effectiveness of programmatic, of the use cases. I think the case studies are a great example of education over and above the nuts and bolts. I think to Ben's point earlier on, we need to be careful about what we attribute to it and what claims we make, because in a lot of cases, programmatic is a small part of a larger out-of-home campaign, which is a smaller part of a bigger multimedia campaign. And then, outside of that, there's competitive activity that needs to be taken into account when we're looking at results. So I think we need to be very careful about what claims we make. For programmatic, I think there are some excellent case studies in market that are educating people about the whys and wherefores. Just be careful about what we claim, because in some cases it's very, very tough to answer that question. And I think there is more scrutiny on programmatic out of home at the moment because it's quite new.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I just, so we have a bit of a different structure, similar to Michael's point around Match and Wood. I think we have pretty similar structures by the sounds of it. And we actually have like super teams. So the guys sort of do everything from planning and buying across all channels, which is, again, quite unique for us. So it's actually been a pretty seamless transition to programmatic buying, because it's essentially using skill sets that they already have across what they do from a traditional point of view and what they're already doing sort of in platform, and bringing them together. So the doing, I guess we're sort of in a good spot. It's also around sort of delivering excellence and trying new things and making sure what we're doing is always striving for the best. And I think leaning on our partners is key to that. So we work really closely with the guys on making sure that what we're actually doing in platform is right, and that we're sort of, delivering the results that we need to for our clients.
Yeah. And Ant, how are you, or how is Group M really, I guess, bridging that gap between conversations with Sightline and then the agency teams to ensure that, everyone, back to the question, does know what role out of home plays?
It's about kind of having the conversation, having the Sightline team involved from the start, similar to all the disciplines with it, whether it's kind of strat, planning, investment, or activation. And getting them in the understanding the client, and we're similar to what Lynchy was saying in terms of map to particular clients. So what is expected from them is they know the ins and outs of ultimately what's trying to achieve, through to the role of channel, and then how it's going to be activated. And through that, they will actually work through to make sure that you guys know who that person is, and us sharing you to make sure you have all that detail in the brief. And also, likewise for us, to work out who within your businesses we're talking to understand. I know it came up earlier in terms of the different targets and forecasts, and everyone is different. It's a similar, not one brief is exactly the same for the same client. So it's how we articulate that to externally to you guys, but also communicate that and those baton points internally. So it's going to be throughout the process and getting everyone engaged early.
Collaboration, communication. I guess one thing that I do want to touch on, and I don't want to run over for time, and we've got 5 minutes left. What, I guess, challenges, anyone is willing to share these. And I don't want to turn this negative because I really want it to be a positive conversation about programmatic. But I guess what challenges do you think clients are facing, or what do they need to feel comfortable to lean in a little bit more? Is there something you guys are doing already, or is there something that you need from, us as, partners, and IAB for that? So anyone want to put their hand up and share?
I think from my perspective, and this kind of answers a different question, what I like about programmatic is that it's shifting control to the buy side to a degree. I think out of home over the years has been very much, we're keeping control with us, hence selling packs, not giving us the ability to pick the where and when. I think that is a great opportunity that clients should take up, and hopefully we'll get more of that. I see, more uptake when there is really clear case for, the additional cost that is in programmatic to be justified, and that comes down to again, case studies, as I said. I love the control piece as a buyer. To have more control over when and where your ads are seen is important. Having more data and more information around how those sites are performing is really useful. I think that's something we could probably learn from a traditional out-of-home perspective as well. I know Move 2.0 has been developed. We want more access to that. I think that the openness of programmatic, allowing us to see performance, is really useful. I think that's probably where we can take clients on a bit of a journey. So.
Yeah, I think for us, what we would love to sort of get to the point, and it was touched on briefly in the media owner panel earlier, but I think the reality is the programmatic teams are still quite siloed from the direct teams, and for us, we would love to get to a point that we're chatting to one person and sort of getting combined responses, and I think that comes back to sort of empowering the sales team, which I know was touched on, but I think that could really be a driver for growth in the channel, because you're making it easier for us as buyers and as agencies to activate across both when we're getting responses that clearly show how we can do it.
I guess that comes down to the ease of trading with us, what you want to do.
And the only bit I was going to say would learn from other channels. We've seen similar challenges with, if you look at screens in terms of how you activate video, or even from screens, our clients are relying on getting spot lists. The amount of times, even for our programmatic activating, they said, "Oh, I haven't seen it," and it's like, "Can I get a pop?" And it's like, "Come on, guys! Like we need to shift with the times as well." And that's an education piece. That's on us, in collaboration with you guys, to educate that. We can do that, and that it is going to be delivered, and this is what it's driving for their brand. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do: deliver business outcomes. So, the more that we can kind of get closer to drive that loop through measurement, and also seeing it and seeing those case studies, that really helps in terms of whether it's kind of overlaying some footfall, and people with bricks and mortar, if they can link that to their sales, it's also they're sharing that with to do a category job. And I think that's where, because at the end of the day, it's the same sites that are in the ground. We all know how hard it is to get a new site up and running. So there's higher quality if we're going to be buying it traditionally, and we can enhance it. You'd argue that there's more value or through less wastage for the right purpose. So it's about kind of working together and having that one conversation. And that's two-way, you guys to us to know who to chat to, and likewise for us, we want to have the one conversation with you guys, not a traditional and then what about programmatic?
Yeah, absolutely agree. This question wasn't in there, but Lynchy, you just said that the cost, so an increased cost, and this is something that I think I've experienced since starting at QMS. I get asked a lot, programmatic is more expensive than trading traditional. Is that because agencies have driven our direct rates down considerably over the years, or what is the cost? Is it high in comparison to traditional, or is it high in comparison to other programmatic, BVOD, for example?
Currently it's higher than digital programmatic fees that we're paying, so there's a justification there. I think in some cases, I've seen people justify using programmatic out of home because it's convenient and because it's easy. And clients don't necessarily think that agencies should be doing things because they're easy or convenient. And if I say to a client, you should do programmatic out of home because it saves us time and effort, but it's going to cost you 10% more, they'll tell me where to go, quite frankly. And that's a conversation we need to have. We've got to be able to justify. There is a fee, there is a cost. There's a cost on both sides. Working media does get reduced by that. It might not be a large amount of money, and the efficiencies may well kind of counteract that. But it's still a conversation we've got to have. We've got to justify it, and that justification can take time. I think the more we do things, the better it will become, and the easier it will become to persuade clients. And the more clients that do it and test and learn, that conversation becomes a lot easier.
Okay, great. We've got 1 minute, so I'm going to wrap it up. What do you guys think is the biggest opportunity for programmatic out of home for the future? And maybe to Charles's point, what percentage is it going to be in 3 to 5 years? Sal?
Between 3 and 10%, somewhere.
3.5?
Yeah. No, look, I think for us, like, to be honest, in terms of our agency, we're probably sitting at that higher end at the moment, which is great. So we'd obviously love to see the industry be coming in line with that. Like, we're probably sitting at around, 7 or 8%, which is great. So yeah, we'd love to see that from an industry point of view. I think in terms of opportunity, like I sort of was already mentioned today, but just the fact that we're sitting in a room with, those 340 registrations today, that there's so much interest in the topic, which is great. And I think, I don't want to sort of talk too much about what's already been talked a lot about today, but I really do think that the measurement piece and the standardisation will help, I guess, build confidence with clients. And obviously the more confident clients become, the more they'll be willing to try, which means that we can spend more money and do some cool things and show that it works. So I think we're at a really good point, and more omni-channel sort of capabilities as well will only sort of build the strength in what we can do.
For me, it's about kind of, I think the biggest opportunity, and it's quite promising, is the addressability piece. And there's such a focus on audience first, audience led. So how we connect that back, and also doing it with the confidence of like the relationship with us, with you guys, but also the trust that the clients have in us. And I think that's for test and learn, being clear on what success looks like. And it's not putting all your eggs in there. It's understanding the role, dipping it in, and how you optimise, how you want it to tweak, and what results you'll see as an outcome.
I think there's 2 points there that Emma mentioned before, that you don't want to just cannibalise your money, but programmatic will rise, I think, purely because any campaign with a degree of complexity will get pushed towards programmatic. So that's kind of a natural increase in programmatic spend from what's currently being spent. That's not great for out of home, but I think having clever people thinking about how to use a medium over time will just make it grow. I think the ability of clients to be able to activate, networks of sites that they've identified and build bespoke at a point in time is something really attractive to a lot of clients. That if I can push a button and say, I know these sites work for me, I can place an ad on them right now and make a difference to my sales. That's interesting for clients, I think. So that kind of thing, again, it talks to control and innovation, but also immediacy in a medium that's traditionally been quite restrictive in terms of activating.
Thank you. Before I wrap up, does anyone have any questions at all? Because I've run over. One. You've had a lot of questions today.
Sorry, that's all right. I'm just wondering, for the purposes of planning, what are the data signals or traits that you're finding are most useful to you today? And perhaps an extension of that, like, what would you love to see available to you for your planning purposes?
Yeah, I can go on that one. So we do a lot around sort of location, like using postcodes and things like that. But I guess a core part of our product is we do a lot with Helix personas. So being able to sort of identify where personas are located across Australia and then mapping it using our tools, like our sort of DSPs based on that. I think sort of bringing in some of those further data capabilities into the DSPs will only help, because obviously it makes it more seamless and means that we can activate really quickly against some of those core audiences. At the moment, it's quite a manual process. So yeah, anything to sort of make our lives a bit easier would be great.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sal. I think the build is like we've got our own products and tech. All of you guys have different data partnerships, so it's like how can we leverage that to reach our audience in a cohesive way. So how we can actually activate on that. So I think we're almost got too much, and I think not one client is, well, each client has a different data signal to achieve our audience. So I think it's up to us as well as you guys and the supply and the DSPs of how we actually build that to achieve and shift the dial. And it might just be your 1 or 2%, and I think that's where getting all of our clients to test it in some capacity should see growth with that control piece and the flexibility.
We have an out-of-home planning platform that's driven using Roy Morgan data as well, so that's one of the inputs, Helix personas. But we're building a platform called Omni, which is going to be used across the group. That's going to have multiple data sets implanted within it. Increasingly, all planning, buying, reporting will be held in that platform. And at the push of a button, we should be able to access various different data sets. If they've got something to say about what we're doing in out-of-home, we'll use whatever's useful, I think is the key point there. We're talking to people now about getting access to their data, but probably can't say who it is just yet. but those conversations are happening. I'm sure they're happening at every other major agency or agency group. But there's going to be a whole lot of additional levels of data feeding into our planning in the future.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to the amazing panel. I hope that everybody got something out of today. I definitely did. I actually have a few more questions that I'll ask you guys over a drink later. But thank you. Round of applause to these guys.